This is our meeting room. We try to have training. It was originally designed as a meeting room, and since that time, it's become our emergency operation center, EOC we call it. As a matter of fact, we have a sign on the wall that says Wilton Police Department, and if you turn it around, it says Emergency Operations Center. When we had all those storms, we try to fit all the department heads in here. In that brown cabinet there, actually one of our old retired sergeants made that. But it folds out and there's a radio in there and there's all these hardline phones hardwired. And so we have to pull all these wires out, set it up. You can see the outlets attached to the tables. And so we figured out a system that works. It's not as efficient as it should be. The original intent of the room was to be a little bigger. Now we have an office for like the officers to use, but it also doubles as like our traffic person who does the traffic studies and the equipment they need, the plates to measure vehicle movements and that kind of stuff. So that's a workstation there. And then on the other side is a workstation that's basically the sergeant's office. Now we have 5 sergeants that use that one little cubicle, and you can hear the radio that's going on. They have 6 radios in there that are charging all the time. They have all their equipment. They don't have like office space.
This is the men's locker room. You can see the lockers. They could be bigger for the uniforms that the officers have to store their equipment. So a lot of modern police locker rooms have ventilation inside the lockers so that you can keep your bulletproof vest in there. It attracts a lot of sweat and moisture. If you leave it in these lockers, it starts to come up with a stench after a little bit. There's not enough room in the lockers to house all of their equipment, and this is what we end up with. We had to recently buy locks for all the lockers because the locking mechanism on most of them was no longer operational, and it just didn't make sense to buy a whole new set of lockers at this size to fit this space. We have about 40 male employees.
We have 2 toilets for 40 plus male employees.
We have women on the force now.
That's right. And so we built a ladies' locker room. Twice.
We can see that, and it's pretty much at capacity. We've already done one expansion to accommodate.
We had a little hallway that went to our archives room, and so we took the hallway and gave them an extra 3 feet to fit 2 more lockers, and we closed it off, and then we moved the door to the main hallway, so at a different entrance. So we're creative, at least, but and we manage. This is radio equipment. It's basically a small closet. It was originally the telephone closet where all the main wires came in, and now with technology and 911 systems and the radio system technology, everything is cramped into this one little room. So just to give you an idea of the difference of when the building was built and what we deal with in today in 21st century policing. Elevator system, upgrading electrical systems. We'd have to have like fire alarms, smoke alarms. We don't have any of that. We have a couple of heat detectors. I think they're tested every year, but it's original, and smoke detectors are what people use today. So. Here's where we have to store our long guns, spare radios. They have a toolbox for the armorers, if they have to fix a weapon or something, they have to secure certain things. As you can see, they tried to get a workbench in here. We also have equipment from the ERT team, our SWAT team. And this over here is it's an ultrasonic cleaner for the handguns. But anytime you work on something. And then over here, all these guns on top are all guns that have been taken in. They're either evidence or safekeeping. We're required to store them. And then we have our ammunition. We have shotgun ammunition, we have rifle ammunition, we have practice ammunition, and then duty ammunition. And then we have to have a safe for our canine for the drugs that he uses in training. This is where we would practice our firearms, and we've done so for many years. We've replaced the backdrop. But what happened was OSHA ran a test, and they discovered there was a lot of lead issues. So we immediately shut it down. We've had it cleaned, and it's clear as far as it didn't present a health hazard, so it was good that it was caught early. But we can't use it until there's an upgraded ventilation system. The ventilation system that was built might have been appropriate then, but then again, with technology just like it, they weren't aware of the health hazards as we are today. So we've not been able to use this. I want to say it's 3+ years now. So the latest numbers anywhere from 60,000 plus to get this working again. This is where the officers will eat lunch. That's also a patrol officer's workstation. So when he has to write reports, do an investigation, he'll sit there. But people are in and out constantly, so it interferes with their ability to focus. But we don't have room for private areas. On that far wall is all the portable radios that the officers use. That's the charging area. On top are materials that they need to reference, memos, mail, that kind of thing. And then now we have the new cameras, the body cameras, and so we ended up putting the charging station there. But you'll notice all of these electronics have these electrical strips. In some places we have electrical strips plugged into electrical strips. And over here, it's a place to put a coffee pot. And so we just manage, and everything's crowded. We could really use storage.
Okay, so this is our temporary evidence storage area. So when officers are out on the road and they make an arrest, whether it's a seizure of drugs or other evidence that relates to a crime, this is the temporary evidence storage area where they will secure that property until it is permanently placed in our evidence locker room. Essentially, all it is a filing cabinet with 4 lockers and a master lock on it. Ideal world, you have an evidence room where you can separate drugs, you can separate non-drug evidence, and you can separate currency and weapons, and it's just not able to be accomplished in this current facility. I mean, that's the thing, in this area, you do a 360, there's a lot going on in this area. This is where, when we're coming in for the day to start our work day, everyone comes in here. We have our radar units and other miscellaneous stuff stored here, miscellaneous medical equipment here, your medical gloves, copy machine, another workstation here. And again, you've heard throughout, you see where our computers are set up. It's generally in the middle of everything, and as police, we do have to do a lot of report writing, and entails a lot of focus and attention to detail. And not that we don't accomplish it and make it work, but ideally you do have an area that is separate and apart where people can sit down and focus and get their work done. You can see right here, we got about 5 different conversations going on. This would be a place where people could potentially be doing reports.
The flow in this building, everything is square, rectangular. The hallways are narrow. They're not even wide enough for wheelchair.
So this is a lieutenant's office that houses our 2 patrol lieutenants. And right off the bat, you look at this and you're like, if you're wearing your duty belt, I'm a little bit smaller, but someone a little bit bigger than me. You got to turn sideways to come into the door here.
This is basically a cookie cutter type facility. It was used for either a prison or a government building kind of thing. It wasn't specifically designed for policing.
This is the Detective Bureau. The example is we just had, the bank robbery arrest. To do the interview, we're walking them out of booking across this whole area here into the Detective Bureau. Ideally, it wouldn't have to be that way. We would have an interview room somewhere in there that is separate.
Yeah. And this is where we bring people who are under arrest and need to be processed. So here's our new printing machine. The officer has to make some entries on here and the information while he's eliciting the information from the prisoner. And then over here, the forms and the computers and, the laser printer for the fingerprints. And, the more we get, the more we have to cram in here. So, and then when they're done here, they go into the cells.
In terms of our cell space, the federal guidelines state that if you're housing juvenile, they should be kept separate by sight and sound. You can hear everything that's going on in here, so that doesn't accomplish sight and sound. I mean, if you look inside some of the cells, the bathroom facilities in there are obsolete. I think we had an issue with one of them in terms of plumbing, and I think we had to search near and far to find someone that actually had the parts to replace the current setup in here.
But you can also see the ventilation or lack thereof. There is no ventilation. There's one vent here behind the old box light that's original too. So the prisoners are constantly complaining. One of the issues that we've always had from day one, we have to give them blankets. But you don't want to give them a blanket because we're taking their belts and shoelaces, and because we've had people, try to harm themselves. So it really poses a liability risk and a dilemma for the officers.
This is where if we make an arrest, officers are coming through that door, securing the other door, so this is a secure area so that they can process the prisoner, so they can secure the prisoner. Now, once they're secured, it's still possible that you come in as a victim of something simple like an identity theft. Well, the space that our officers are using to interview you and take your complaint is the chair and desk over there, just a door through where we're housing a prisoner. If we have an investigation where we have two people under arrest, possibly accomplices, in an investigation, and we're trying to interview them and figure out what's happening, they can hear everything each other are saying, and it's just a deterrent to us to do effective investigations. And we make it work. We make it work, but it's definitely not ideal.
So this is the heart of our investigative services. We've got cubicles for each detective to try to conduct interviews. Unfortunately, it's open air. It's just a cube. The person in the back can hear what the person in the front. If there's two at one time, it just is a conflict and it's a problem. But we could have non-criminal people, which is a lot of what we do in here too. We do permits, we do just about anything that needs a background check, that kind of thing. There's a lot of victims that come in to give statements. So you're walking through, criminals with innocent people, and it's just a recipe for disaster.
This is the evidence processing room. So, something comes in that needs to be processed for fingerprints or fumed for potential fingerprints or DNA. This is where they keep their equipment to do that stuff, and this is the area that they have, essentially that desk, to process that evidence. Make it work, but ideally you have a lot bigger of a space, a lot more even of a sterile of a space to do that kind of processing. That filing cabinet is where computer forensic evidence is stored. It's secure, but it's in the middle of the interview room. Again, not ideal. And then the office space for our two school resource officers. They're essentially back to back in here. Every inch we're making it work the best we can.
So we have 3 garage bays. Now it's become a storage for like toilet products, paper products. We got a couple ladders, water, bikes, recycling, and then we have 2 car chargers, battery jump packs, fire extinguisher, you name it. And then these cubbies are for the officers' equipment. As you can see, a lot of them carry these heavy bags with all the stuff they need for the day. We had these cubbies, one of our officers made them, and this allows the officer to just take the bag and put it in his car right out here, so he's not carrying it up and down the stairs. And these bins here are for hazmat suits, toilet paper, noodles for our car seat installs. These are actually demo car seats. The blue water for the windshield wash. I mean, just about every inch has some form of storage or equipment.
Over the holidays, we had a few stolen cars. the bank robbery investigation entailed the recovery of a suspect vehicle. Those kind of things, from criminal investigation standpoint, need to be processed for fingerprints or DNA or evidence that's going to lead us to apprehend the suspect. If we recover that vehicle, this is the area where we're keeping one of these bays to secure the vehicle as a secure area. Now, we'll shut the door, we'll put a sign up, say, don't come in here. We'll put tape around it. Our officers know, not to touch it. That's evidence of a crime. But then just processing it, the space isn't ideal. And it's not simply as simple as just let's take the car somewhere and process it. You need to, again, have it in an area where if you're swabbing for DNA, that it's sterile. And it's not as simple as just taking the car somewhere and processing it. A lot of times you got to secure search warrants. That takes time. You got to write it up. You got to find a prosecutor. You got to sign a judge to sign it. It can take days before that paperwork is in place, before you can actually process the vehicle. And all that time, the car is being stored here in one of these garage bays, basically eliminating that space for everything else that's going on in here, as you can see. At the end of the day, we are a police department, and the service we provide is keeping the community of Wilton safe, and a lot of that entails the needs for upgrades would be related so that we can provide even more effective and efficient police services to our community.